Hi, everybody, and welcome to Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan, and this is Jack Pine from High Redbird. So, how's it going, Jack?
Hey, Robin. I am doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay. It's. Look, there's butterflies. We don't have butterflies here yet. I wish we did, but it's getting warmer. It's supposed to be in the 50s this weekend.
Meanwhile, I have been open for spring break at work because it's all outside. So I have a little bit of a light sunburn.
Wow, I feel really sorry for you. Not. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about tonight. Tonight's topic is a little different from what we usually do, but I think it's something that we need to talk about. What do you think?
Yeah, I, you know, as things are starting to progress back to normal, um, I know both of us regularly offer advice to people in various groups when they reach out. And I feel like a lot of the advice that people are asking for right now is falling into the same category, which is basically how to move forward with life with your animals as COVID restrictions, quarantine come to an end, as you're trying to leave the house to do more. There's a lot of things that are all going to fall under that umbrella. Robin and I had not initially, when we planned what we were doing for the month of March, we had not initially planned on this video, and it just kept coming up and we kept having to talk about it with other people. So we definitely thought it was something readily needed for a lot of people.
And I think too, the same question keeps coming up over and over again. What am I going to do? How's it going to change? Or as people start to go back, things are changing. And I think people need to really consider what's going to happen. My opinion. So in some cases, I think as things return to normal, whatever that may be, we will start, maybe we're going to see better relationships. That would be my hope, that people have been working with their birds, working on things and improving that relationship. I mean, what do you think? I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think if you have been at home, if you have been, I've seen so many people that are doing things for their birds, building toys, working on training, and a little bit of a shameless plug. If you guys have not yet watched the videos that Robin and I have done covering a variety of different training exercises, you want to make sure that you check those out. You can watch them on the High Redbird YouTube channel. I always recommend if you subscribe to the Leather Elves on Facebook. Not only can you watch it, you can interact with us there, but you'll also get a notification every single time we go live, which we're going live every single Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And one of the things, if you guys were worried, if you were concerned, because we don't know how things are changing, Robin and I are planning on doing these sessions for the foreseeable future because we know so many of you have enjoyed them, you have learned from them, you have appreciated getting to spend time with like-minded bird people. So you guys can, definitely continue to watch these videos, but I would think that you definitely have a good potential to have a much better relationship with your bird because what else have you had to do? Uh, a lot of people have just been stuck at home. It's like, well, I'm gonna train the bird to do this now because that'll keep me mentally stimulated for the day. Um,
So you're all saying right now, so Jack and Robin live in the land of rainbows and unicorns, and that is true in some cases, but the flip side of building better relationships, yeah, we have butterflies all the time, but the flip side of that really is there may be behavioral issues. as people are, getting out more, going back to work when they've been working from home, or, or just generally not being as available, we may see some behavioral issues, and if the little bit less attention may translate into things like screaming or plucking, or, you can list them, I'm sure. But I think that's the reality of it, is we may see that.
Yeah, I would say that anytime there is a change in your schedule, in your routine, that is where you're going to have the potential for an increase of undesirable behaviors because you changed what that animal was expecting. So some of
Mhm.
you may have experienced these behavioral changes when COVID quarantine started because, it's all going to depend on the individual animal. If you have a dog, the dog may have been thrilled to see you every single day. You have a cat may be like, go away. You're supposed to leave me alone for 10 hours every single day. That is part of our agreement. You are not holding up your end of the bargain. So, anytime there's a change, you might have an issue.
And I think, I'm seeing in the comments, Kate tries to keep Bandit on a schedule, she tries to prevent those issues. And that's one approach. The other, then Debbie says that, her birds have had a hard time being home. And I completely understand that too. Debbie's birds are working birds. And so they need being to be out with people. That's what they're used to. So Debbie saw the shift happen with COVID versus when COVID kind of goes away, or things get back to a little bit more normal. And, for people who have been working on these behaviors, I mean, hopefully you guys are listening and then working on some of the stuff that we talk about. And so you've worked on these behaviors, you've got them, you're like, oh, I've got target training down, I've worked on station training. The other thing that we may see is some breakdown in those behaviors. We've all talked about repetition, that repetition, builds that aids in retention. And if there isn't that repetition that's happening on the same kind of schedule that it's been happening, you're probably going to see a regression in that behavior. I mean, would you agree, Jack?
Yeah, you know, yeah, um, you know, and again, going back to the notion of changing anything. Yeah, if you are throwing your animal for a loop, you can see that regression, you can see that breakdown. So, yeah, as Kate was mentioning, that scheduling, to me, one of the things that helps immensely is scheduling like that. Um, for a lot of zoos, for a lot of professional institutions, they are going to implement hey, this is the time that this bird gets trained every single day. These are the times that these animals get fed and watered every single day. Uh, Animals, they benefit from consistency in their care. And it's really weird because Robin and I are going to talk then about enrichment and how you need to provide variety and how can you provide variety and consistency. And the good thing about COVID and trying to find silver linings here is, ooh, one of the good things about COVID, I think a lot of people have realized the importance of socialization, regular enrichment, in how it applies to their own lives. So
Mhm.
we can talk about these things. You get bored because there's not shows that you want to watch on TV anymore because you've watched all the things that you find interesting. So you need that variety for enrichment. But at the same time, if you're working from home, a lot of people have found that having a schedule where they get up in the morning and they do a set list of things puts them in a better headspace to be productive. You're seeing the exact same things. That schedule can help you, but you still need that enrichment component as well.
Absolutely. And I think, when Kate was saying that she does a schedule, and I love Debbie's got a comment here that she sometimes likes to call it consistent inconsistency, which I think is wonderful. It's a great phrase. I really do. I agree with you 100%, Debbie, because I think, sometimes when we get super rigid and then life happens, there's a problem. Like Jack said, at a zoo or a facility, they may set it up with, okay, this is going to happen at this time every day or this time every other day, whatever the schedule is. And if you can stick to that, that's great. But I don't know, Houston traffic versus my little Canaan, New Hampshire traffic, there's a big difference. I don't have to worry about being home at a certain time if I say, when I get home, this is what's going to happen. But I know that with Jack, traffic in Houston can be a challenge. And you may not get home when you expect to get home. And is Widget going to have a meltdown because he's used to the minute Jack comes in the door, this is what happens. So it's about that inconsistent consistency. It's a great term, Debbie. I love it.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, again, your schedule for your birds is yours. You
Mhm.
come up with the plan that is best for taking care of your animals. If somebody else has something that works for them, great. And you can pull from different sources to build whatever program works best for you. But you've got to find what works best for you.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like Widget, for example, my green sheet conure, who lives over here and usually tries to vocalize through at least part of the live stream. Widget has actually learned the sound of when my car alarm beeps when I lock my door, and then I can hear him start vocalizing from that. So
Mhm.
he gets a marker that I'm home, and he knows that he's going to get interaction really quickly after that. So he's able to build his expectations around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we need to kind of talk about, we'll play, I'll be the Darlene Downer, and let's talk about, okay, so your boss says, no, you can't work from home anymore. You've got to come back. And you've been having these great interactions with your bird throughout the day. And where do we go from here? So you're seeing a little bit of regression. You're seeing, behaviors that may not be what you really want to see. So I think we need to talk about training alternatives or training replacements for for the behavior that we don't want. Um, Jack, I mean, when you see all of a sudden a behavior pops up that you had either worked on and it went away, or you suddenly crops up and without your video camera being on, you say, well, it came out of nowhere. Little plug for the videotaping things. But we need to talk about what are we going to do? We can't just it's not just going to go away. And I think people need to remember that.
Right. And so this is getting into the topic of something that most animal trainers, if you ask them a question, they will probably answer this at some point, and it'll probably drive both of you insane. People will come up and they will ask, my bird is doing this. Okay, what do you want the bird to do? And they'll say, I want it to not do that. So if my bird is screaming, I want my bird to not scream. And that isn't helpful. Obviously, the goal for you can be that the bird is not screaming, but to train that bird, you're not training that the bird is not screaming. You're training that the bird is sitting quietly while, like, you have to train something that the bird can be doing, not, I want you to not do this. Because our animals are going to have a really hard time with that. So
Mhm.
finding a replacement behavior, finding target training is wonderful because it usually has an animal's focus. If you want an animal to go somewhere and focus there, it's a great start to building that behavior. But find something that you can train instead.
Absolutely. I mean, for anybody that's ever smoked, I mean, let's talk about that. So, people who smoke, then they don't want to quit smoking because they're going to gain weight because they replace the smoking with the eating or, some other behavior that's not helpful. And so, but there's that replacement. Behavior doesn't just go away. It doesn't just happen in a vacuum. There's got to be something to take its place. You can, the being quiet is okay, it's a replacement, but is it a realistic one? Let's talk about I want my bird to stop screaming, but I've got to give him something else to do. When I work with people about plucking, birds that are over preening, one of the things I say to them is we'll give them something else to preen. Give them something else to do. Give them a lot of foraging so that they have something to replace that over preening behavior because you've got to have something there. And enrichment is another way to do it. We've talked so much about enrichment and how important it's been throughout COVID and in our lives. But if you've got something, a bird that's doing a behavior that you're not, or exhibiting a behavior that you're not happy with, maybe offering a little bit of enrichment will take the place of that behavior.
Another benefit to using enrichment in that way. Uh, so if I have a bird that's screaming, and if I'm target training it and I am actively doing things with it, I can avoid that screaming, but it is requiring me to be actively training and working with that bird. And realistically, sometimes I may not have time for that. Sometimes I may need to, hey, I've got to make dinner and I've got to do a load of laundry. And so enrichment is one of those things where I can say, here, I'm going to pull you to this stand and I'm going to give you something to do. You can train a response to enrichment. There are so many different options here, and the fun part is fun. It may drive you lightly insane. Every animal is going to react differently, so you do
Mhm.
have to find what is going to work in your situation. What so it's fun because once you get it, you are going to have this masterful feeling of like I completely have control over my life, over, like, look at these things. My bird is well adjusted, it is, behaving, I am incredible. And then of course, the sun will rise the next day and you get to start all over again. uh, so um,
You could be in charge for a brief moment and that's it. But I think Jack, the point there is we've talked about finding a reinforcer. It's the same as finding an appropriate replacement behavior. It's going to differ from bird to bird, from animal to animal. It's not going to just because your bird is X, it's not going to be the same as every other X bird. You need to think about how's it going to work in my setting? How's it going to work for my bird in particular? And really, you know, make that time. It's we love our birds, it's we probably wouldn't be here discussing them if we didn't. We care about animal welfare. So if you can schedule in that time, not necessarily it's going to be at 5:05 every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, because is that realistic? Life happens. But maybe you say, okay, I'm going to set aside a half an hour, or I'm going to set aside two 15-minute increments at some time during the day. And then so that's when I say you've got to schedule time to train, I'm talking more about carving out that time instead of saying it has to be at a specific time. What do you think?
yeah, so to use Widget, my green cheek conure, as an example, he does a training session every single morning while I am waiting for my coffee to pour. Because that is a wonderful time to do it because I'm not going to do anything else because I haven't had coffee yet. And that's going to give us a 3 to 4 minute window. So it's not the most in depth training session, but we're able to do it every single day, every single morning. Um,
Mm.
and then we'll also do a training session in the afternoon after I get home. We rotate when he gets what types of food. So those are all things that are going to be in my considerations for providing care for my animal as well. But they're not always going to be at the exact same time. There are some days where I'm raring to go at 5 a.m. And Widget's like, it's a little early. And there are some days where it's like, okay, it's like 6:15. I guess I'll have coffee now. And Widget's like, you're a little late. What's going on? It's not the end of the world. He
Mhm.
is used to that because, again, we don't have a incredibly strict schedule. He knows it's going to happen at some point, but there is a little bit of variability there. So that gives you the consistent inconsistency. Thank you,
Mhm.
Debbie. I like that
And
term.
Julie says she likes the coffee time, and Melissa says that Zorro comes out when he comes out of his cage. He knows that's time. Right when he comes out, it's time for training, and he would come over for that. And I think we teach our birds these things, and Jack talks a lot about expectations, and we've discussed that. And I think we set these expectations up for our birds, and then we kind of have to go with that. We've got to roll with it. It doesn't mean you have to be rigid, but you've got to at least be accessible. We talk a lot about things being bird centric and or pet centric, whatever that pet may be. And you kind of need to go, okay, well, maybe I can move that around a little bit. That doesn't mean change up your schedule and call your boss and say, look, hey, I've got to do a training session this morning. I can't be in, which don't we all want to do that sometimes? But, and I would call into myself. So, but, I think it's really about carving out that time for yourself. And it's,
And
you've built that
the other thing,
relationship.
oh,
Go ahead.
the other thing I would say is when you're carving out that time, make sure that you are going to set yourself up for success. Make sure it's time that you are available to do it. So if you're planning on, I'm going to do a training session right before I leave, and there's traffic, and you know that you're going to be lightly stressed because, okay, we got to hurry up and get this training session done because otherwise I'm going to be really late for work. You're going to be distracted and it's not going to go well. With widgets, coffee training set, coffee for me. I don't give coffee to widget. I feel like I need to clarify that. With widgets, coffee time training session, I do not train new behaviors because I have not yet had coffee and I know that won't go well. So we train new behaviors in the afternoons, and in the morning, it's a refresher for behaviors that he already has a pretty good handle on because I want to set myself and widget up for success.
Absolutely. And I've told this story before, but with Nikki, when I used to train Nikki, my Kaik, I made sure that I had enough time to complete that training session. So it wasn't, like the coffee time training session that, okay, I've got this much time, and I would start the training session. And then if something went awry and Nikki didn't want to go back in the cage, it was, oh no, you have to go, and you have to go now because I have to go. I have to get to work. And I was working outside of the house at that time. And it was more about what I needed, not reading what Nikki needed. And so it's got to be an equal footing of who's kind of controlling that session. You can't let your animals control, oh, I want to do a training session right now, and I'm going to scream until you do a training session. Because then what have you done? You've trained them that if they scream, you'll come running over and do a training session. The flip side of that is you can't say, oh, sorry, buddy, gotta go. I have to leave now. And I'm sorry that now I have to force you to do something instead of requesting that behavior of you. So if you're going to be animal centric, then you need to be flexible with how you handle that situation. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, Jack, is that we've talked about there may be a regression. There may be a regression in the training that you've done, but it's really important for people to remember that regression isn't a failure. It's a step back in approximations. So it's not, oh, forget it, I'm done. This isn't working. I don't want to do this anymore. You should be prepared, whether it's you're going back to work out of the house or you have less time, whatever that may be, you should be prepared for some regression. I mean, do you
Well,
agree?
I completely agree. And I'll even take it a step further. Um, we are talking about regression and behavioral issues with regard to how we go back to life from COVID. Regression is going to be a part of every aspect of training. Um,
Mhm.
Even the world's best animal trainer training the smartest, most motivated animal in the world is going to have issues where, hey, some days we didn't hit the objectives as we wanted to. We didn't meet the standards that were set in place. So regression is normal. And especially if you are doing daily training sessions, if you're doing regular, and uh, they sound intimidating when we call them training sessions. Because it's like, oh God, like I have to go to the gym and I have to do 27 pieces of equipment for it to be a session. Like a training session is really just a small piece of time that you put aside to train your animal that has the potential to be beneficial for both you and your animal. You don't need to do, and you shouldn't be doing a 30-minute to an hour long training session because your animal's going to lose interest, you're going to lose interest. Um, but if you're doing that regularly, those small training sessions, you're going to be familiar with regression. You're going to be familiar with understanding. Sometimes we have to go back one approximation, two approximations. Sometimes even it's just a part of training a new behavior. If you have a behavior that you shaped one way and then you want to tweak it to be a little bit different, you're going to have to go back a couple approximations just to then take that new path. So it's completely normal. It If you can work through regressions, I would say that is a sign that you are a successful animal trainer. So it's not a sign of it.
And I think too, we talk in terms of approximations, those steps to get to a behavioral goal. And if you have to go back a couple steps, that's all right. I think, I know we've got some zoo professionals on here, and anyone that has done training as a job will tell you that, if your job performance was based on whether your animal never regressed, I think all of us would be out of a job, right? We would have lost that job a long time ago. That, if you're working in a facility and you've got an animal that's not progressing the way you wanted, that's not a banner of, oh, they are the worst trainer ever. That doesn't mean that. It's just, okay, I've got to approach it from a different direction. I've got to look at it from a different angle. Maybe I, videotape that and then watch it and see what's going on. So it's really about, looking at those approximations, figuring out, how do I go back? How do I take it back a step and not just kind of give up? But it can be fixed.
Um, yeah, it uh yeah, like there are so many different things that you can do to adjust your approach. So I saw Julie just asked, Robin, Jack, or Debbie, have you ever just decided to use a different approach versus going back a few approximations? Um, I would say for me personally, yes. I have one. I have hit a plateau where I have had to modify my approximations to get to the next step. Maybe I was trying to accomplish too much at once. I have had to take times where I think, oh, I this was my plan for getting to that behavior, and I don't think it's going to work now. I'm going to have to completely change how I'm going to shape that behavior. And I have also had behaviors with certain animals where I have had to take a step back and say, you know what? For the amount of work that is going into training this behavior versus what I'm going to get out of it, I don't think it's worth it. And as you are training your animal, I feel you are constantly going to be updating what your understanding is of what your animal is doing, what your objectives are going to be. So I would say there's nothing wrong with changing your approach, changing your approximations, or reevaluating whether you even want to train that behavior. Robin, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. There have been a number of times when I've gone in, and especially when training different animals to accept and use different enrichment, I have gone in and been like all gung ho. This is going to work. This is going to be great. They're going to love this, and this is how they're going to use it. and it's presented, and we go through, the approximations to desensitize and to get them acclimated to something new. And they're like, yeah, no, that is not what I want. That's not how I'm going to use it. And you're like, wait, what? No, that wasn't how my plan went. And, I see Melissa says she gets frustrated easily. Absolutely, Melissa. It happens to all of us. And again, if any trainer who's done this for a job ever tells you, oh, no, I never get frustrated, it's always smooth sailing. Yeah, not so much. You really want to question whether that's honest or not, because all of us have been frustrated. All of us have taken that step back. And to answer Julie's question, absolutely, rather than just going back, tried different approaches. Because when you think about it, how incredibly frustrating would it be if you weren't understanding something and somebody just kept telling you that do it over and over again the same way? I have to admit, I've had conversations like that with my husband, where I'll say, okay, so blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And I'll say, well, blah, blah, blah. And I just keep telling him the same thing over and over again. And I can see it. His blood pressure he, thank God, doesn't really watch these too often, but the blood pressure goes up, and it's because, I just keep saying the same thing over and over again. And with our animals, if we keep asking for the same thing over and over again and they're not making any progress, and you've got to kind of say, wait a minute, this really isn't working. And again, not a reflection on who, not a reflection on who you are as a trainer or your value as a trainer. It's really about just assessing the situation and reading your animal's body language, listening to what the animal's telling you. So yeah, we're back to husbands again, Chris. I know. It happens. But so there's a topic. Oh, Jack, you have something to say?
I mean, I'm just laughing first. Yeah, apparently we're back to talking about husbands again. No, so it's gone. It'll come back.
Okay,
You
well,
killed it.
so I see here. So Simon's chosen Kimberly's husband as his mate, and now that her husband's working from home, he's getting all kinds of attention, and he screams for attention, and it's tough to get through that Zoom meeting. I completely understand, and it's really about how do you get. So now you got to train again. You got to train the husband to kind of, let's work with Simon and figure out how we fix that. So they are trainable, Chris. They are, but so there's all these things that are coming out of these changes, and I think we're all seeing them. And one of the big things that we wanted to talk about was, Jack and I are seeing more and more on Facebook and in groups that we're in, are people saying, I need to rehome. So the first thing I want to say before we go any further is there are absolutely valid reasons that people need to rehome birds and animals of any kind. And no one should ever be shamed for having to do that. You don't know what's going on in someone's home, in someone's life. And, no matter how much they share on Facebook. So I'm hoping people take that kind of step back and before they jump on someone that says, I need to rehome. So for us, Jack and I really wrestled with this. How are we going to handle this? And we wanted to bring it up because we feel like it's an important topic that needs to be addressed at this kind of juncture in the global situation. I mean,
Yeah, I have a lot of large parrots where I work that are so all of my large parrots are actually rehomed birds. They all come from different circumstances, and so Grayson, the umbrella cockatoo that I have used multiple times for demonstrations for you guys. Grayson's owner, for medical reasons, was not going to be able to continue to take care of him. So when I went to pick him up, We talked for hours. Um, there were there were tears. She continuously checks on the status and the well-being of him. She is still very much attached to Grayson. He is a wonderful bird. She just knew she was not going to be physically able to take care of that bird. Um, and I think for me, one of the things that I can see a lot is people will say, I'm not able to take care of this bird, and others will jump on them. It's, oh, well,
Mhm.
you didn't really care about that bird. You didn't really like that bird. You should have planned for that. And life happens. Your situation can change. Your relationships, your housing situation, your medical situation, all of these things can have an impact. So, all of these may be things that you need to sort of weigh out and figure out how they're impacting you and your bird.
So I feel like, with things changing in the world and the new normal, so the way I'd like to put it is weigh the pros and cons and then determine if the new normal is a have to or a want to situation. Is it I absolutely have to or I kind of want to? And I think when you look at the pros and cons, you've got to be honest. Is it something that I've exhausted all my resources? I don't know, where to go from here. That's a little different than I this just isn't working out. And even in that case, sometimes if it's not just working out, maybe that bird would be better off in a different home. So, Sheila says, I feel really bad for the person when they are trying to explain an emotional situation, whatever it is, and it's sad and unsupportive. Absolutely, Sheila. I've seen that conversation on on Facebook so many times. But you've got to really think about, is it working for that person? And weigh the pros and cons. The other thing that I wanted to make really clear is that if you come to the conclusion that rehome is the way you need to go, please don't self shame because people do that all the time. Oh, I'm a bad person because I didn't keep the bird, and I didn't try hard enough. You know, that's probably not the case. Chris, it's so true. You can see what Chris says here, Jack. It takes a strong person to admit that they're over their head and ask for help, or even to rehome their birds. In Florida, they get a lot of birds rehomed due to the age of the owner, whether it's health related or just going into a living situation where they cannot have their bird. Absolutely. It is a strong person. Jack, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that on the notion of self shaming, I feel in my experience, most of the people that would fall in that category of wanting to shame themselves for not doing enough, not they are the people that have already been doing what they are capable of doing, what they know how to do. The problem is that sometimes circumstances just dictate that that's not enough, or it puts you or the bird in a difficult situation. So I completely agree with you. Don't self shame yourself. If you are, that seems redundant. Don't self shame yourself. Um, if you are in that situation, like you said, sometimes finding that new home for your bird can be the best thing that you can do in that situation.
hmm And I think before you make any kind of snap decision, you really need to look for your resources. And there are so many different resources available. There are behavior consults. There are people who are out there that are really, willing to assist with that. And there may be a price to it. There may not be, these live streams. So we've answered hopefully a lot of questions for people over the time that we've been doing this. And it's another resource, and if you've got a problem that's really nagging at you and that you think things are really difficult and you can't find the answer, I see all of you out there helping one another with your comments. And this is we've built this community, and I'm going to get all like, but we've built this community, and really you guys have helped one another. And hopefully Jack and I have helped you as well. But, things like bird clubs. Bird clubs are great for moral support. You've got a group of like-minded people that are there to kind of talk with and really bounce ideas off of. And as a community, I would hope that you are able to reach out to some of these resources. I mean, Jack, do you have any suggestions for people?
Well, and so again, that sort of goes back to what I was saying on the last point we were making, that sometimes people reach the point where they are doing all they can or doing all they know how to do. So, reaching out for help can open your eyes to something that you didn't even realize was a possibility. It can present something. There are so many ideas I have given people that not only are they do they think that yes, it would be helpful, but they also think, wow, that is actually a pretty straightforward, easy thing to do. I can't believe I wouldn't have thought of that. And we all have ideas, things we have seen that have worked with birds, ways that we have seen that training can help get you past a plateau, help get you past a negative behavior. So you may have something to contribute to somebody else as well. So I would say try to make your experiences available to people. And uh, again, Robin and I keep talking about this. Things like recording your training sessions. You could record a training session, you could share it. The nice thing about it is, so like a behavioral consultation is usually a set time. Whereas if you have recorded videos, you can usually do recorded videos for uh, more people or for less of an expense, because it is whenever you are available to look at it, not I need you to have your time focused on me right now. So recording your training sessions, reaching out to your friends who have birds and having them assess your training sessions, as we go back to having things in person, having them assess your training sessions directly. These are all things
Mhm.
that will have so much of an impact.
I mean, I can tell you, I'm working with several people on behavior issues, and they'll send me their videos and I review them. And then we get together and really talk about, okay, this is what I'm seeing. And oh, I didn't see that. You're going to make it over there? Um, and I can't do this alone, Jack. So, you know, behavior consult via Zoom. I know Sheila said she was looking for resources. Um, my one word of caution is really that if you're going to work with a behavior specialist, make sure you get some references. And word of mouth is a great way, Sheila. It's and I've seen some references on Facebook that I have questioned. And, having a certification behind your name does not always make you the best trainer. I know countless trainers that are exceptional that are not necessarily certified trainers. So, Sheila, we can talk about this, reach out to me or Jack, and we can talk about some resources for that. But we've learned so much through the pandemic. We've learned so much about how to communicate with people across the continents, we work with Hilla in Germany quite a bit, and it's a matter of on Zoom, just setting up that time and getting together. I have and I know when Debbie did, Seattle Parrot Expo last year, she had guests that were, guest speakers that were thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away, but through Zoom, we still got the message across. We still were able to experience that. And so I think, Sheila, either someone locally, I would have to think about that in your area. or someone, virtually. So there are different resources out there. But I guess, so Jack, the other thing we need to talk about is when people have exhausted those resources. They've done, the behavior consult, they've talked to their bird club, they've talked to their friends in the community, and they've ultimately decided that they do need to rehome. What do you have? What would be your words of wisdom as far as what do I do next if I've got to rehome or relinquish my bird?
So one of the biggest things that I would say is find someone or a group or an individual that does what you would like to see done with that bird. So, for example, I have taken in numerous rehomed birds. One of the reasons that people will rehome their birds to me is that they want to see their birds used in educational programming. They want to see they want other people to know, hey, this umbrella cockatoo can live up to 80 years. And I didn't really understand that when I got this bird. But now, if you use it for education, a lot more people will know that and they'll be able to make that consideration. So think about how you would want that bird to be cared for and see if you can find a situation that lines up with that, because once you rehome that bird, once you give up that bird, you don't have that degree of control over what's going to happen in its life. And I mean that's another part of why Robin and I have talked about so many aspects of care of what happens if something happens to you. A lot of our birds are going to have life expectancies equal or greater than ours. So, unless you are starting with a hatchling bird as a newborn, there is every likelihood that bird will outlive you. And you can have ideas, but you don't have control of what happens to that bird after that.
And I think that's really important. A couple of things you brought up there, Jack, that so you can reach out to members of your bird community, your local community, but you've got to be careful that you don't push. Jack, this is the best bird ever, and you got to take him for me, Jack. I don't know what I'm going to do. Jack, you have to take him. It's really important that you take him for me. I can't do this anymore. Rather than, hey, Jack, I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. Do you think you can take my bird? Um,
Well, and you just pointed out another one. Be honest about your bird. Um, I see a lot of people that'll say, "Oh, this bird is wonderful. This bird is beautiful, pristine, has had the best diet ever." And then you get the bird and you realize, well, the bird is feather plucked and does not like any form of social interaction and has been living on trail mix with M&Ms for the last 20 years. And the problem with that is when you try to rehome a bird with a certain expectation of what that bird is or what that bird will be, and it's so far off because you were just trying to basically promote the bird, to sell the bird, to get it moved, you're setting the bird up to then go from home to home to home as they're trying to find a fit. So be honest about what your bird is. If the issue is there are behavioral issues I cannot work through, I don't think I'm a good enough trainer to get through this. If the issue is there are medical issues that I just don't have the time, the ability to work on, be honest about that bird, because that's going to be setting that bird up for the best possible chance.
Absolutely. And it's really about coming to an agreement, and the other thing is don't just assume that family members will take your bird because, yeah, you love your birds and maybe your husband or your wife or your partner loves your birds, but maybe your kids are not thrilled. Maybe, that's just not their thing. Maybe they don't have the time. So just, you can't just assume that, oh, well, I'm just going to, if I need to rehome, I'll just give it to one of my kids or one of my family members. It doesn't always work that way. And the other thing that Jack brought up before was when you relinquish your bird, you don't have that kind of control generally. Maybe you've set something up and you do, but you want to be careful that you don't make the snap decision, rehome your bird or relinquish your bird to someone, and then say, oh, I changed my mind, I want it back. Because on so many different levels, if you relinquish to a facility, they have hopefully explained to you that this is, you're giving up your bird and you've got to kind of go with that. The other thing is, if that animal gets rehomed, then people, now you're kind of ripping that bird away from someone else who has now become attached, and it doesn't matter how long it is, you get all excited. I mean, even on Facebook, I see people saying, oh, well, I was so excited, I wanted to get I got this new bird and I was all excited and I FaceTimed with the person and now it fell through. Okay. Even without being with that animal, there was a bond.
Well, and so especially with birds, like that is one of the major positive aspects of birds. They have so much personality. They are so intelligent. It is so easy to form a meaningful connection with a bird. But at the same time, it's very, very easy to form a meaningful connection with a bird. So it's a good thing, but you also have to be aware in a situation like that. You don't want to pull that bird away from people who are already attached to it because they thought, oh, well, here, I think I'll be able to take this bird in and I can give it a good home and I'm going to do what I can for this bird. And then that sort of gets taken away from them.
Absolutely. And, you've got to think about what's the rescue or the sanctuary, whatever term you're going to use. What have they put into caring for this bird now when you decide you want it back? It's not a boarding facility. You didn't agree to have your bird boarded. You agreed to relinquish or rehome your bird. And if you're going to go with a facility, a individual or a group of individuals who do take in birds that are being relinquished, do your research. Make sure, it's not always those unicorns and rainbows, right? We've established that already. Just Jack and I live in the unicorn and rainbow world. But you really have to think about their butterfly. Cue the butterflies. So Nick fell asleep, I think. But you really want to look at what are they, is it a place where they're, working with birds as for breeding? Is it where it's a, lifetime forever home at this facility? Is it they're going to turn around and rehome your bird to someone else? Know those things going in so you don't get blindsided when you find out about it later on. Absolutely, Julie. Sometimes just a break, a temporary situation can be helpful. Definitely. So rehoming is a decision that is absolutely a valid one for in a lot of situations. And I would hope that moving forward, people kind of remember that. But before you jump to that snap decision, please go through your resources. Please exhaust those resources before you decide, I can't do this anymore. And, the other one I see a lot is my spouse can't take it anymore. And, everybody's all flipping stuff on Facebook and they're like, oh, well, get rid of your spouse then. Well, obviously that's not the case. And so, well, in most cases, but you just have to kind of really work with what you've got and be respectful that everybody's in a different situation. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was a period of adjustment. So think about how long it took us to get used to wearing our masks, staying at home, doing our grocery shopping much less frequently, not just running down to the store because of COVID. Think about how long it took us all to get used to that. So now we've got our birds and we're asking them to snap change how things have been. We're back to that discussion of change. They do deserve an adjustment time. Okay.
Well,
If,
and
go ahead.
you can't. The other benefit there, the other thing to keep in mind with us, someone was able to tell us, hey, you're putting on a mask and you're going to the store, and these are all the things that you're going to be doing now. And that helped that period of adjustment. You can't tell your bird, oh, hey, I'm now going to go to work for the day and I will come back at 5 o'clock. Instead, what's going to happen is you're going to go to work and you're going to come back at 5 o'clock and you're going to do that again and again. And your bird will realize this is what the change is. But it's going to take that much longer just to communicate that point to your bird. So keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely. And, anybody that promises you a quick fix when you're looking at your resources, anyone that tells you, oh, yeah, I'll get that, we can fix that, we can take care of that. You really probably want to remove them from your resource list because there are no quick fixes in behavior. There just aren't. It takes some time. It takes that period of adjustment that you've got to kind of wait till things shake out. It's like when you start a new job or when you get in a new relationship, you've got to kind of see how things settle out. And we definitely owe our birds the same thing. So it's sometimes it feels like I can't do this anymore. I just need to change this. If you allow that period of adjustment and you weigh those pros and cons and you still feel the same way, okay, then yeah, it's probably time to look into rehoming. But please go through the process first before you make that judgment and that decision. So, oh, it's tiny print, Diane. I have to lean in. In their parrot placement program, Long Island Parrot Society, go Long Island. It's up to the owner where their bird is placed. We check out the adoption candidates if to deem if they are qualified to have a companion parrot in their home. We offer tons of education. Sometimes we have the owner attend the virtual home visit. So, I mean, that's if I had to rehome a bird, that's a great opportunity. Not all places do it that way. I know, I noticed in the comments that Chris had asked, it said get a long-term fostering agreement. Just make sure you're clear on what the terms are. So it's not, well, I wanted you to just take it so I could kind of get things squared away. That's not what you agreed to. Read the fine print. If you sign anything when you relinquish a bird, you really have to think about what are the long-term ramifications of this? Do I understand completely what I'm getting into? And the same when you take a bird in. I mean, that's a whole nother evening's discussion. But so yeah, this was a tough subject for us. I mean, I think Jack and I kind of, like I said, we wrestled with it, but we wanted to talk to you all about what you may be seeing as things go back to whatever the new normal is.
Well, and I mean, obviously, Robin and I have been doing weekly live streams since 2020 at this point. Uh, I know, right? It's been a little bit. Covering a different aspect of providing for your bird, interacting with your bird. We both fully agree that there are so many instances where having a bird is rewarding and just so incredible, but there can also be times when you need to change things. Your situation has changed. uh, Things are not what they used to be for your life. um, and so by working through all of these different things, I think the important part to recognize is if you rehome a bird and you find a caring home for that bird that provides for them the way they need to be cared for, you did not fail as a pet owner. You provided what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to provide a loving, caring home for that bird, and that's what you did.
And we so often talk about animal welfare and how important animal welfare is and what goes into that. And I think sometimes being able to take the step back and say, okay, this may not be the best situation. This may not be the right place for this bird. And I've tried everything I could try. I've, worked on different training plans. I've asked for help from different people, and it's still not working. If you are truly dedicated to that animal's welfare, then you're going to do what's right and you're going to rehome. And that's not going to make it any easier. Anybody that says, oh, she was so much happier when the bird left. Well, you know what? Probably not. You probably saw some stressors lifted off that person, but you didn't necessarily see a much happier person. You just saw someone who is dealing with things on their own. And I think we just need to be aware of that when we talk to people who are contemplating rehoming. And I kind of hope if any of you know anybody that's in a situation right now where, or in the future, where they're really considering this, send them over to the High Redbird or to Leather Elves, and they can see this live stream and really have, give it a little bit of thought and have an it's just another resource. So, all right. Final words, Jack. I think we've kind of covered this
Yeah, I mean, I
as
think
far
it's just it's a difficult subject,
Mhm.
and I feel like for some people it can be almost a taboo subject. Like you're not supposed to talk about ever rehoming your bird, which seems weird to me because a lot of us have rehomed birds. So those birds have to be coming from somewhere. So,
Hmm.
I don't think it is going to stop being a difficult subject. Our emotions are going to play into it so much because again, we get attached to those birds. I mean, you have a tiny flying dinosaur in your house. Like, that is awesome. But also, sometimes there's a tiny flying dinosaur in my house. So, you know, try to keep all of these things in mind. Trying to balance all of these things can be really, really difficult. But knowing where you have your resources, where you can reach out to people, having a plan in place, I think can be incredibly helpful. Uh, Videoing your sessions, writing things down. Um, if you have a calendar, write things down. How your training is going, how your interactions with that bird is going. Because sometimes you might feel like, oh, this bird has been mad at me for forever, and you look at the calendar and oh, it's been 7 days. Well, okay, that's a little different. And sometimes you think, oh, I'm about to turn the corner. We've been making such good progress. And then you look at your records and, well, for the last 3 years, the bird bit me 3 times a week. So those sort of objective means of assessing are going to be helpful because your emotions are going to play a role and that can make it much more difficult.
Absolutely. Okay, so the moment you've all been waiting for. We do have a trivia question tonight. And tonight we've told you about all these behavioral issues you're going to see, right? Or you might see with things changing. So what we're giving away tonight is a consult with Jack and I, a behavioral consult. So in case you run into any of these hurdles, we can maybe help. We're going to bring butterflies into your life. And so here's the question. What is the term for one small step in a series of progressive steps that lead to the behavioral goal? So there's that question out there. And I know you guys know the answer to this one. I know you do. But while we're waiting to see who types the fastest, um, we wanted to remind you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be doing a PVC workshop. There is a fee for the workshop, but it's pretty reasonable. And today is the last day to register because I have to send out the Zoom invitations for this. And if I don't do it today, I guarantee you it'll be 5 minutes before and I'll be typing and I'll type your email wrong. So tonight's the last night, even though it says until 3:18, we have extended that through tonight. So if anybody still wants to sign up, we're going to do PVC stands. We're going to do PVC toys. We're going to talk a little bit about how you maintain it and how you build things. It's going to be fun. So if you want to join, just go to theleatherelves.net and you can click on that and I will send you out a Zoom invitation. They probably will go out either later on or first thing in the morning. So, Nick, do we have a winner? We do. Debbie Goodrich, do you really need a behavioral consult from Jack and I? You know what, Debbie? We're going to get together and we're going to brainstorm. We absolutely are. Because I know for a fact that Debbie is a fantastic trainer. So congratulations, Debbie. We will, you can email or message Jack or I, and we will set that up when we can all get together. I'm excited for that. You guys probably think that, Jack and I just talk about this on Friday nights and we don't talk about any other, we don't talk about training. Jack and I talk about training almost on a daily basis. And it's like we geek out about training. It's like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's a great idea. Oh, I didn't think of that. So Debbie, we're going to geek out with you during this training session. So excuse me. Thank you guys again for listening and I love the way I look down a lot, and it's because I'm reading some of your comments, and I love the way you guys support one another. It's really, really fun to see. And you guys, I have to be honest, some of you arrived here with some real good training skills already under your belt. Some of you I know are new to the whole idea. And I really, really can tell you all that I have seen you all in your discussions come so very far. And so I want to thank you for supporting Jack and I and for reinforcing what we're doing. So next week we have a really fun guest. It's going to be Melanie Allen from HARI, the Hagen Avicultural Research Institute. Some of you may know Melanie. And we're going to talk about general wellness, nutrition, just kind of, how to make sure we've talked about, getting weights and those kind of things. But we're going to talk to Melanie about how things you got to look out for and what do you keep an eye out for, and just some really good tips on the general wellness of our birds. So, Jack, anything to add?
I was going to say, I am looking forward to that. If you guys have not talked to Melanie, seen her speak, Melanie is an incredible resource. One of the fun things, she comes at things from a different aspect from me and Robin. So she's going to think about things that would not be the first thing that we would go to. So if you guys have not already made your plans for next Friday to come, you need to go ahead, pencil that in now. You definitely want to make sure that you share that with your friends as well, because we do have our ongoing goal. We would like to see at any one time at least 50 people watching all at the same time. So by inviting your friends, you can help be a part of that. And we are giving away a very special prize. We'll give you one of the custom shirts from the High Redbird Threadless channel. If you guys don't want to wait that long, you could always just scan the QR code, go there and get yours now. But we are going to be giving one of those away once we hit that goal of having 50 people at any one time watching. So I think with Melanie, we're going to hit it.
I don't want to, correct you, Jack, but sometimes, who wouldn't want one of those? And I don't think anybody wants to wait. So, I'm just saying, It's kind of important. And the other thing I need to correct you for is people don't have to pencil in our Friday night live streams because it's every Friday. You just have to draw that line down your calendar, your written calendar that you have. You just have to draw that down there. So it's not something they got to plan for. They're just going to be here. And down the bottom, we've got a bunch of people that are coming to the PVC workshop who have already registered. I want to thank you guys, and it's going to be fun. I'm promising that. We've got lots of laughs and lots of learning, and it's again super exciting to see you all coming together as a community. So all right, you guys take care. We will see some of you tomorrow night. We will see hopefully all of you next Friday night. And just remember, things are getting better and we want to see you every Friday. Take care.